Hello and welcome to my channel. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe so I continue making more. Today we're making sourdough bread. And to make sourdough, you need to have a sourdough starter. To make that, we start with 100 grams of bread flour. And to that we need to add 100 grams of warm water. Now that will create a nice thick paste that we're going to kind of keep in a warmish area for 12 to 14 hours where it'll start to ferment and create a nice starter. So from your starter you will make all your sourdough. You can keep this dormant in the refrigerator for months at a time, years at a time. I leave mine on the countertop and I have no problem with it. Whenever I want to start making sourdough, I just feed it for a few days and then create a levain and then just go from there. So to feed it, you just want to have 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of water every day to keep it charged. Other than that, you could just keep it dormant. Depending on how much levain you might need, you would just adjust that to your recipe. So you would start with, for example, 50 grams of starter and then 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of warm water to come up with 250 grams, which is what I kind of do for my recipe. So to start the recipe, we're going to tear out a jar and take some freshly ripened starter, and I'm just going to start by adding 50 grams of that starter into the jar, and then just adding 100 grams of bread flour and 100 grams of warm water. So give that a good mix, incorporate some air in there, and then I just store it somewhere warm. The oven works well, it brings up the temperature to about 85-90 degrees. I don't leave it in there the whole time, but I just kind of get it started. And in about 6 hours, it looks nice and frothy. Use it within 12 hours. Or else you'll have to feed it again. So now it's time to auto-lease the flour, which simply means just adding the water for the recipe. So since we're using the baker's percentage here, 1,000 grams of unbleached bread flour is our 100% marker. And we're going to use a 67% hydration for 670 grams of warm water. And this is going to be a nice dry dough for your starter dough, and let that rest for about 30 minutes or so, and then you can add in your salt. Now I'm finding that this is not super necessary, so you can add the salt earlier if you'd like. Now we're going to add in our levain, so 200 grams of levain into the dough. So after you add the levain, you're going to want to mix the dough well for about 5 minutes. It's going to be very wet at first, but then it'll start to come together towards the end of the 5 minutes. And you want to let it rest very well for 30 minutes. At that time, after 30 minutes, you want to start to fold and stretch to build up the gluten. So I do a coil fold, and that is simply I pull up the middle and I let the two sides fold under each other, and then I rest it back down, and then I spin it halfway and do it again. And you're going to want to do this in 3 sets over a half-hour period after the resting time. And it starts off pretty wet and disagreeable, but then as you progress to the next set of pull and stretch, you'll notice that it starts to get drier and drier as you go. This part is extremely important because you want to develop them glutens and have a nice strong bread, so it'll puff up nice in the oven. So 3 sets of coil folds, or any kind of pull stretch you want to do just to intensify the glutens in the bread. By the last time you do it, this bread should be nice and smooth with a tension surface and ready for the fermentation period. So this is really important. You want to cover it with a damp towel and let it set for about 3 hours to ferment. When you poke it, it should spring back slowly. This is to let you know that the fermentation is pretty good, and then you could start working with the dough. So pour your dough out onto a surface, a non-stick surface. I put a little bit of flour on mine, just because it's a kind of a sticky surface, but you just want to pour it out and then portion out your dough to whatever size containers you're using. Here I'm using a smaller round one and then a long one. So on your bench you want to kind of work your dough up a little bit, and you could do another coil stretch. I do a few coil stretches, and then I just you just want to kind of pull the surface tight on your dough, and then just kind of, I flour mine a little bit and just let them bench rest for about 30 minutes. Then I place them in my container. You want to use rice flour because it won't hydrate as quickly as flour for the overnight rest, for the 8 hours in the refrigerator. So when you pull it out, it should be nice and fermented. It'll raise a little bit more while you leave it out for about a half hour while the oven warms up. So I pull it out of the refrigerator, I turn my oven on, I turn a kettle of water on immediately, and I test the spring again. Put your finger in. If it comes back slowly, as you can tell I put a couple finger marks, it's coming back very slowly. It's perfect for baking. So when the oven's up to temperature, you can see that it's also risen more. Water's boiling, and I turn my oven up to 500 degrees. Especially at a home oven, it's just not hot enough. I have a metal pan in the bottom to pour water into, and the pan gets very hot while I'm heating up the oven. I also have a nice metal tray. Scoring is extremely important. It allows you to control where the expansion of the bread will be, so you can really come up with your own sort of scoring techniques. You want to score nice and deep so the bread has a chance to cook out of it. Nice hot oven. I can't express that enough. Very hot. It'll save your bread from being super flat to just having great oven spring. So, you know, a lot of times I'll put a loaf of bread in. It kind of seems flat, but very fermented, and nice hot oven will bring that spring like right up high. So nice hot oven. As you can see, it's puffed up pretty good. So thank you for watching this video, and please like and subscribe, and I can put more cooking tutorials and also live action videos in the future. So thank you very much and have a great day.